Hi, it's Laura, and I want to provide. Well, number one, I'm scaling back the final project in this class um, dramatically from what I previously envisioned it. We're going to really consider the biggest project in this class your STAR event, which I think is fair. But I'm going to walk you through what I want you to do to tell me like how you would run this event concurrently with your class. Like the whole purpose of this is not to make FCCLA so much of an extra thing that you have to do in the end of the day. Some of it will always be, but the idea of it is that you are using FCCLA within the context of your class. You're using it during the day. So to help me today, we are going to demo how to change and update a STAR event for use within your classroom. So I have my friend Mackenzie here.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Yep. And she did the hospitality, tourism, and recreation event, 4-star event, did really well. Yay, woo. But we're going to walk through how and what to edit out of this to use this within the context of your class. So, Mackenzie, tell us a little bit about your background.
So I grew up and I went to Central Campus for their culinary arts program, where I got college credit for it. And so then I only had to take 1 year at DMAC in order to receive my associates in culinary arts. And then I worked at Exile Brewing Company for about 6 years as a manager, worked all of the positions, back of house and front of house. So I just have a good scope of like the restaurant industry.
Yeah. And so that background industry experience is really good for you just in terms of knowing what kind of like is the key concepts, things that students should know to be career and technically ready. But if you didn't have that background or experience, you could refer to the national FCCLA standards to kind of really pick out like what are the skills, topic, techniques, things I want to teach within the context of my class. Okay, so before we begin, since people are not familiar with the hospitality, tourism, and recreation event, why don't you talk us through what this event is about?
Okay, so for this event, students are basically, let me scroll down to it. Students are basically choosing from one of these components or one of these like focus areas. So they have culinary, lodging, recreation, tourism, and event coordination. And they're basically just like designing their focus area. So for like culinary specifically, they're choosing like their cuisine, menus, the types of service. They're talking about target market and audience.
So they're designing a business in each of these scenarios.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a restaurant for culinary. It is a hotel or inn for lodging.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. But for like a culinary class specifically, if you were choosing like a pro start class, then you really would just try and scale it back and not allow students to pick like the event coordination or the lodging, and you just focus it instead on the culinary aspect.
Yeah. So this is a key part. So you want to pick the class that you're teaching. You're going to be using the STAR event within the context of, because that will also shape how you edit and change the STAR event. What Mackenzie was just saying there is she is planning on teaching Pro Start classes, which is she can because of her industry experience. Teach them for dual credit. You don't have to teach them for dual credit, but like you like the Pro Start curriculum, you've been to it, you're familiar with it, you like it. She knows she wants to teach culinary in the Pro Start fashion, so she's going to have Pro Start 1, Pro Start 2, and within the context of the class, she's going to use this project there. But because Pro Start is focused around the restaurant industry, she is going to limit and not allow her students to do either the lodging or recreation versions of this. She is only going to have them do the culinary version. So in doing this event, like what do you design? Give us an overview of what you design and what kind of you create and presented at State.
Yeah, so for this project, what you're like really focusing on is like number one is target market and like who you're like trying to like target with your restaurant, and then you're also like going over like different types of menus and like the different types of style of service, the different cuisines that you can pick from, and then you're creating it into like a website and a doc where you're like presenting all of this information. Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So here I'm going to talk about like different types of STAR events. It's been my experience that STAR events are generally one of 3 categories. If this doesn't fit your STAR event, reach out to me because I full disclosure, I don't know every single event and page of that 400-page manual. I know some of them that I've done really well and judged. But I tend to see 3 levels of STAR event projects. One of them is comprehensive, meaning the content, the skills would be taught in the scope of one whole class. An example of this is the fashion design project. It had various elements that I taught within the context. Like you would have to take the whole semester of fashion. My class was called fashion analysis and design, but every like little piece was a little bit that you learned over the course of the course. The next event type that I've seen is very skill specific, and I would point to job interview as that one. Like I didn't spend a whole time teaching my kids about job interview skills. I spent my semester teaching about college and career readiness, of which one unit was the job interview. So it was very skill specific that way. The other version is I don't know what to call these, but I call them generally applicable. So they are events, but can be applied to a lot of different content areas. Mm-hmm. So my examples there is that like professional presentation. You can make a presentation about anything, or career investigation. You can investigate any career. In the case of those, you might want to give parameters about what the student could do a project in. So I used to use career investigation in my health class, and you had to investigate a health career. You could do you can use professional presentation in any class, but then like decide what the topic and content of the presentation will be about. And in that case, you might have to add in some materials that say like specifically, did you include these things content-wise in your thing? What does hospitality and tour represent, do you think? Is it a comprehensive, a skill-specific, or a general?
I would say comprehensive because it goes over skills, it goes over content knowledge. You have to take a whole semester, like you said, in order to understand it.
Right. And I agree because like looking at the things you're going to have to do, a menu would be a unit within a class.
Yeah.
Understanding the types of cuisine would also be a separate lesson.
Yeah.
Versus
same types of service.
Yeah. Job interview, it probably is a unit unto itself. I am going to speak to it like I might spend one day on filling out an application and then practicing for the interview. And so job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a few days.
But that is part of the how are you going to deliver this? Mackenzie is going to deliver this this throughout. She's going to use this element to cover content, to cover and assess content that she taught throughout the course. If that's the case, you kind of have 2 choices on how you deliver it. You could either say like, I'm going to cover these content throughout the course and we've practiced on them throughout the course. And at the very end, I'm giving them this length of time to do this whole project and work on it. The pro con there is like they get to do it all at once and pull it together. The con is like, I don't know if you've ever worked for students with several days in a row, but sometimes you really have to keep them on task.
Yeah.
And it's kind of is this all or nothing, sink or swim thing. If you have a student who's gone or absent for a few days, like especially if you let them do it in teams, like this can be worrisome. Mm-hmm. The other way you can do it is you can say like at the end of each unit, I will have them work on this piece, and then we will have a couple days at the end to like it's like making each puzzle piece and then putting the puzzle piece together at the end. That was kind of how I did my fashion analysis and design. Like I'm teaching this unit over target market. So at the end of it, like I taught you to write a target market and a mission statement. We did that. Then we saved that somewhere and we moved on to the next thing. Which way, it doesn't matter, but which way do you think you envision delivering this project in your class?
I would probably say the second way where you're working on it like unit by unit and then at the end just a few days.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so from here, like I would know the shape and scope of the event by reading this first intro, but I'm actually, when deciding on how to integrate it into instruction, I'm a big fan of backwards design, and backwards design says you begin with the end in mind. So we are going to start with the rubric and editing the rubric to be what we want it to be.
Okay.
So paging down to the rubric, which is hard because we are screen sharing. There are typically 3 types of information I find on these rubrics. Mm-hmm. Again, if something is outside of the scope of that, you can let me know, and I can work it out with you. But the 3 types of information I find on the rubrics are, there is content specific unit. Like it's within the scope of the class you're teaching. It's a skill. It's a concept that you're teaching within the scope of the class. an example that I would actually say on this one would be like an example of the business mission statement. I am teaching them about mission statements, how they reflect the business. I'm teaching them to write it. So that's a content area specific thing.
Yeah.
Then there are just general formatting, presentation things in general. And typically I find not all of those, but typically I find them towards the end of the rubric, like the appearance of the project, organization, delivery. The appearance of a project is not something only specific to this culinary arts class.
Yeah.
It's something you're working with your students all the time. And then the last thing is there are very much FCCLA specific things that if you're competing in FCCLA, you're going to do this. But don't really, like, they are to ease the administration and organization of the FCCLA competitive events, and they're not really things I'm teaching in the context of my class, nor are they universal life skills that I think need to be done all the time. So let's start there. Can you identify for me any FCCLA specific things that you had to do to jump through the hoops for FCCLA and not at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, of course, starting up at the beginning. So, the planning process summary page. Obviously, you had to have the project focus area, which is already decided for them. So, that one can be eliminated.
Right. Exactly. So, starting here, the FCCLA planning process stage. There are some, you can take it either way. There are some teachers who just do like the planning process and they do it at the beginning of every project.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's your choice, you can use it. I would then leave it there. Like they printed out the template and had the kids do it every single time they do a project. That's up to you. I don't know if it's just because I more plan mentally or whatnot. This one, making the kids fill out the steps of the planning process felt tedious to me.
Yeah.
And I just had them do it afterwards.
I agree. I don't think it's something that needs to be taught in the class.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention this before, but teaching concurrently with your class. Another goal of this is like everyone in your class does the same project with different focuses and to different skill levels. And not everyone, you can only have one person from your school enter each event. But the point of this is they've practiced things that are content like specific. You have a rubric that is workable and you didn't have to make from scratch. But then you can go to those kids who really did the project really well and say like, hey, did you know you had most of the way of a STAR event project done? And you, by coaching them a little bit, you could get them competition ready. And most of it's done within the context of your class, not on the side.
Yep.
Okay. So I have a PDF or editor. If you do, that's great. If you don't, you're just probably going to have to like highlight, copy into another document. But we are literally going to edit this now. Go away. Okay. So we don't want any of these.
Yep.
Here, I wonder. And I might regret all this. But, and then like Mackenzie said, like, so it's important to the context of if you're judging and competing in this, that at the beginning of your presentation, you say, I'm doing the culinary event. But in her class, like they're all doing the culinary event. We're not giving them a point for that. Like, I don't know. That's in the bank of like people who give points for putting names on projects. I mean, I get that it's a nuisance for the teacher, but we're not assessing them on whether they can write their name or not.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to kind of look through and see if there's any other areas that you want to take out, or if you've got just very FCCLA related? Oh, the other thing that is very FCCLA related, I would say, is we kind of went past it, but there is this whole like page here that this is entirely only FCCLA specific. Like, I really like, if you're taking this to state, you do have to like get it down to the certain number of slides, but I didn't say in the context of my class, you can't have more than this many slides. I didn't. So this whole page I ignored.
Yep.
This is something I eliminate when I'm teaching it in my class. Okay.
So those two, I think, are both good to stay.
Mhm.
I think the research is important.
Yep.
The summary of the thing is important. The mission statement's good. Target client profile is good. For my project specifically, I think so. The formatting of how you choose or have students present their projects is up to you. So for this this FCCLA event specifically, they want it in a website format. And one thing that we talked about is it really doesn't matter how you have students present it. If you want them to do it in slides, or if you gave them the free range to decide if they wanted to do it in like a Google Doc or like Google Slides or a poster.
Yep.
But it doesn't hurt to have them do that in the website, because I'm not teaching them how to create a website. That's something that is pretty easy. I tell them to create it on Wix, and then they're able to do it from there. So then you already have one part of the project done, so you might as well have them do it on a website.
And I would agree with that. So sometimes we dictate in the context of our class, like you're making a poster, or you're, as long as the thing itself is not too hard to do and achieve, I would use it. And you would have to make that call. Like Mackenzie found Wix, and she doesn't have previous knowledge of coding or anything like that, but she was able to make Wix without like suffering a lot of frustration, things like that.
Not at all.
However, if you had to like learn something very specifically to present your project, but isn't project focused because you're not teaching kids to be a website designer, that is where I would take the website elements out. So I might go through and just say like business comprehensive overview, and I take any reference to website out. So just saying fully communicate. Mackenzie does like it. She has a tool identified that's easy to use, so it's fine to leave it in there.
Yep. Although this is like further step, but I think I would mash these two together.
Okay.
So
we could do that. Yeah.
Same thing with that. Business website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is maybe, these are maybe now again to the formatting of the website, and they would go in those formatting and presentation, and we can decide if we want them there or if we just want to scratch them out for the purpose of your class.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that's not assessed for me.
Okay. Oh, we haven't gone into that yet. Okay, so hold on. Are there any other FCCLA very specific things? I don't see it. I will say though, in this oral presentation, or sometimes in some of the projects there are, that they link to FCS standards or the national programs. Again, not in the context of my class. I would coach them if they were to take it on to state. And so I would get rid of anything like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the content stuff, which is mostly, not all, but mostly on this first page.
Yep.
If you're thinking about content stuff, there are generally two types of content. Content that is within the scope of your class, or content that is outside of the scope of your class. My example from the fashion analysis and design. So I taught fashion analysis and design, and it was not a sewing class. It taught about the background, the industry, and really treated fashion as a business. But in the fashion design project, you're supposed to take one of your design, you're supposed to pattern it from scratch, and you're supposed to sew it up. That was outside the scope of my class, so I eliminated it from the rubric. However, with that, be aware that once you take that student, you will have to mentor them how to do it on the side.
Yeah.
So, and for my case, like mentoring somebody how to pattern from scratch and sew a piece of clothing is very intensive.
I think the benefit of that is that once you like decide that it's outside of the scope of your class and you just have a smaller group of students, it's easier to teach that smaller group of students how to do this thing that's not in your scope versus like all of your students.
True. Do you have anything in here, and you don't have to, like I think I gave that fashion design. Do you have anything in here that you were like, that's not inside the scope of my class, so I'm going to take it out?
I don't think so. I had thought about the website, but I think that it's easy enough that they can do it, that they can do it.
Yeah. And I guess I'd also then go down to, now we're looking at general formatting and presentation. And so let me talk about three things here. when you're talking about general formatting and presentation, these are skills we like to teach our students to do, just like we might call them readiness skills or universal CT skills, things like that. They're good for everyone to learn, but not necessarily part of the class. When you get to that, you have 3 choices here. Number 1, you can say they are not assessed. Not assessed means that like I'm not going to look for it, measure it at all. Number 2, you can assess but not grade. So this is when you provide feedback for it, but it is not, there's no grade given for it.
Mm-hmm.
I edit misspelling, grammar, things on my students' projects because they need the general feedback to become a better writer, but I'm not a writing teacher, so I just used to like mark them, give it back to them, and I didn't like give points.
Yeah.
And then the last one is like assessed. Like, no, this is a time to practice the skill and I will give you points for it or not. So I'm going to take you to some things. This one is really about your business comprehensive overview. And if you took the word website out, it's fine to stay in because you are using a website, but it fully communicates the purpose and overview of the business in an effective measure. Client services and knowledge of respective areas. Includes all topics required for focus area.
Mm-hmm.
Client services are well developed, thorough, and effectively communicated to portal clients. That is okay. Like, again, we're looking more at this part of the statement and not the website.
Yeah.
Particularly. Yeah. One thing, though, that I might say here is it says like it's topics required for all the focus areas. Sometimes I like to then like make a checklist to say like, did they include? Because like, did they get X? Did they get Y? Did they get Z?
Yeah.
But I do think yes. So the focus area up here has careers, descriptions, etc. I might copy this. Actually, I would like, because this is where they summarize it, but this is like where I would want to check for it below somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I might make a checklist there. But now we're down to the ease of use and appearance and design. Do you want to assess them on this, assess them but not grade them on this, or not assess it at all?
I think maybe assess but not grade. I think that it's not like like you said, not in the scope of the class to be like, oh, make sure that your website is pretty, because I'm not teaching them about the website. But, it should, if their website is like a mess and I can't use it, then I'm going to tell them like, hey, next time, make sure that like your links are working and that like this looks like a nice.
Yeah. So in that case, like I would just get rid of the points, and you could, if you want to, you can gray it out here or you can add an X. But you have options to circle to give them the feedback. Like this was difficult to navigate this website, or it was easy. But you're not grading it within the context of this class.
Okay.
Same on there. It is okay to assess it sometimes though, as like if it's part of the points. So
yeah,
the customer service strategy, I would say, is part of the overall
focus
of this project.
Uh-huh.
But when we get down to works cited, appearance, and all these presentation bits, that might not be a part of the skills of this project, but general things that we might want to include in the grade.
Yeah.
So looking at all these things, are there things among works cited, appearance, organization, delivery, knowledge of subject matter, use of the portfolio, voice, pitch, tempos, volume, body language, clothing choice, grammar and word pronunciation, and responses to evaluators' questions that you don't even want to worry about assessing at all?
The body language and clothing choice, I don't think needs to be assessed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the grammar and word usage / pronunciation. I don't think I'm going to focus on that for mine.
Okay.
The voice, pitch, and tempo, volume.
And I would agree with that. Although, any of these things, if you want to give them feedback on it, go right ahead.
Yeah.
You can give them feedback.
I think I wouldn't grade them on like answering the questions afterwards, but I would like keep it in there just so then like they know that they are going to get questioned about the project. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, and that makes sense. And this would be actually an area where Mackenzie and I would disagree. Like I would say, like, no, your ability to answer these questions does reflect your knowledge of the content area, but this is where you're free to disagree.
I wonder, could you merge then the knowledge of subject matter and that one?
Yes.
It's kind of fit in the same scope.
Yes, you could. And if you're copying out of this into a Word document, go right ahead.
Mhm.
Otherwise, but we're going to leave it here that you, and you know what, the other nice thing is, unless you have, like, if you think about it in the context of your class, you're going to have to come up with questions every single time. And sometimes you just naturally come up with better questions for some students than others.
Yeah.
So it's okay for responses to be not assessed.
Yeah.
Or to be assessed, but not graded.
Yeah.
So we're just going to leave it there.
Okay.
All right. Under these things, works cited, appearance, organization, delivery, knowledge of subject matter, use of portfolio, and visual. Any of these that you want, like, these are all things you want to give them feedback on, correct?
Yes.
Are there any that you don't want to grade?
Maybe the works cited and the appearance.
Okay.
And then also the use of portfolio and visuals. I want to make sure that they are doing it, but I don't know if it's like something that I'm grading them on. I want to grade them more on like the content knowledge rather than like how they're presenting it to me.
Yes. And so at Waukee, we started doing this through like, and you might have similar movements in your own school. We called them like college career ready skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we had time management, other things.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And I mean, that's a hard one as a CTE teacher because sometimes time management literally is part of the career and technical ed focus.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just something you want to give feedback on. Like it was very much more clear for my English teacher husband, who is not going to give them scores on time management. But that's where you use your knowledge of like, am I teaching and assessing the skill, or am I just reflecting on it? So you know, like,
this is what you should do.
Yeah, this is how it came off to me. So you wanted to keep knowledge of subject matter in.
Yes.
But you wanted to take away points for use of portfolio.
Yep.
Okay. To just, nope, wrong button. Okay. Take away the points here. Anything else you wanted to take away the points for?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not that from right here, what I can see.
So then the last thing, we want to look at the rating relative to one another. So let's take this. You're going to get a calculator out and I'm going to page up.
Okay.
So we have 5 plus 10 plus 5 plus 10 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5 plus 3. And what is our total?
45.
45. So we currently have a project that is worth 45 points. Let's adjust down here.
Case study.
All right. Never mind. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
We're just going to literally say that there are 45 points.
Okay.
Currently. Now let's figure out how much things are proportionally out of each thing and see if we want to change weights and things. Okay. I usually start with the things that I am calling general formatting presentation that I've left in to be graded, which for you is really truly the organization, delivery, and knowledge of the subject matter.
Okay.
Because you are giving feedback on the appearance, the works cited, the website, and the ease of use, but you are not grading them. So really, it's not affecting the total. So currently we have how many points? Oh, there we go. What percentage of a project do you fundamentally think should be given to